California for hosting this wonderful event. This night always feels so special, and I'm truly honored to be a part of it. I'd like to offer a no thanks to Nancy for asking me to speak tonight. This is way harder for me than presenting to a group of teenagers, and I would only say yes to you and your strong arm, strong will, and so no thank you. And thank you to all of you for coming. I'm so happy to be in person again. I'm so happy to be in New York City, and I'm so happy to share in this evening with all of you who love Millbrook so much. I'd like to start by sharing a little bit about my family. So if you'll just indulge me for a minute, eventually I will get to my point. My parents are both lifelong educators. Growing up, my whole life revolved around Brentwood School, which is an independent day school in Los Angeles. The year I was born, 3 other teachers were pregnant as well, so they joined forces and asked the school to hire a child care worker and provide a space where faculty could bring their newborns. Starting at 3 months old, I was on a school campus every day, and my memories of growing up were magical. I imagine they were a lot like those of my own children, even though Brentwood wasn't a boarding school. Once I aged out of Brentwood's daycare and had to go to the Catholic elementary school down the road, I would count the minutes until I was picked up because it meant that I was going back to Brentwood to watch the basketball game or see the musical or watch a dance performance. And I worshipped the older kids and wanted to be around them all the time. I would fake sick so I could come to Brentwood for the day and sit in my mom's office and do projects for her or for any other department that needed free labor. I just loved the choreography of school. And Brentwood was my home. It was my world. In 7th grade, I was finally old enough to go to Brentwood, and it was everything I thought it would be, even with my dad working as the director of the upper school. By the time I was a student, my mom was asked to be the assistant head at the newly opened lower school campus, where she also served as the director of admission. For 4 years, my daily schedule was arrive at school an hour before it started, go to school all day, participate in varsity athletics until 5:30, eat dinner and do homework in my mom's office, get dropped off at Marymount High School for club volleyball practice from 8 to 10 p.m., and then drive home, and we didn't live anywhere close to Brentwood, only to do it again the next day. My weekends were almost always 2 full-day volleyball tournaments played in some obscure community college gym in Long Beach or Cerritos, California. We lived the life of boarding school families, just not in a boarding school. Now, as a teacher and a parent, I think about how my parents did it all. And really more specifically, I think about how my mom did it all. She had a full-time job. She went back to school to get her master's when my brother was young. She taught middle school math and high school math, AP economics and macroeconomics. She was the director of admission and director of college counseling at the upper school and assistant head of the lower school. She led East Coast college tours over spring break and taught math during summer school. She even coached cheerleading at one point. And this was all while she raised 2 children who had busy schedules of their own. Undoubtedly, she got this work ethic from her mom, my Grandma Shirley, who taught elementary school her entire working career and raised 4 daughters. She earned 2 master's degrees while her daughters were young, and she taught education classes in graduate school. To this day, Shirley loves to talk about the summer she enrolled in a program that allowed her to take classes at the University of New Hampshire. So she and my grandpa packed up the station wagon and drove their family of 6 across the country from California to New Hampshire, stopping all along the way to see the sights. Careers and opportunities in higher level education were limited for women then. We're talking the 1940s and 50s. But Shirley took full advantage of the lanes she was given. Now, my grandfather was a principal at a public school, and my dad was an English teacher turned dean of faculty, director of upper school, and eventually a head of school. Growing up, I think I always perceived their jobs to be like the big important ones. My parents worked at a couple of different schools during their career, and each time it was because my dad got a senior administrative role. But every time, my mom also got a job. She could be a reading specialist or an AP economics teacher, a director of admission at an upper school or a lower school. She could do anything and everything and do it well, while also making our home not only functioning, but also warm and loving. My dad and my grandpa were, yes, technically both the breadwinners of the household. However, what has become so obvious to me, what has morphed over time, is my understanding that the women in my life, my mom and my grandma, are the beating hearts and the badasses of the family. Sorry, can you say badass? All right, I'm getting closer to my point. Nancy asked if I might center my talk around the idea of service. What could I say to this room about service? You all know so well what Millbrook does, how service-centered the community is. I don't know that I could shed any new light on what our students do on a daily basis. But there is also something unique and wonderful about this specific audience. Not only do you know Millbrook and its commitment to service, but you also are a group of women. So I can give you my current perspective about Millbrook and service and women. In short, Millbrook's campus is littered with these badass women. Right now, on Millbrook's campus, there are 22 female faculty members who have children under the age of 10. 22. Of that 22, 3 are on the senior administrative team, 3 are department chairs, and 7 sit on the academic committee. Pretty sure these are never-before stats. Beyond these numbers, I know so many others who are caring for older children, or a spouse, or an aging parent. And these women who are mothers and caregivers, dealing with their own families, their own households, all while working at Millbrook School. And I can't think of a better example of service. To be a caregiver in any capacity, one has to be compassionate and flexible, patient, and most of all, selfless. Aren't these the same characteristics we employ when volunteering at a homeless shelter, when organizing clothes for outreach, when putting together a diet for the ring-tailed lemur at Trevor Zoo, when speaking with a homesick classmate as a peer counselor? My understanding of what service is has grown and shifted over my time at Millbrook. Yes, we still have the commitment to the classical community service model. John talked about the idea of customer service in his convocation speech at the beginning of this year, and yes, we do that too. But what has become increasingly obvious to me are the quieter acts of service that exist every day, committed by the women on this campus. It's in the simple things like organizing Meals on Wheels if someone has given birth or lost a loved one. It's volunteering to fill in if someone has to miss a class. It's asking how you're doing at lunch because you might look tired or sick. It was never more obvious to me how special this community of women is than during the early spring months of 2020. The pandemic shut the world down, and we all retreated to our little Millbrook campus bubble. In addition to figuring out how to do our jobs over Zoom, we were scrambling to facilitate online learning for kindergartners, first, second, third graders. It was a disaster. But I felt so lucky to be a part of this group because we showed up for each other in meaningful ways. We organized homeschool teacher appreciation happy hours in the parking lot behind Abbott Dorm, where we all came together and toasted ourselves for getting through the week. We would do grocery runs for each other and share the precious packs of toilet paper if you found some. We would send encouraging text messages or funny parenting memes about how weird, hard, ridiculous the whole work and homeschool dynamic was. We took socially distanced walks. And everyone on campus was feeling differently about the pandemic, but this community of women listened and supported in ways that were appropriate and relative to each person. I don't mean to generalize, but I will, because we're women in my audience here, and they're in a place of women. Women have the capacity to take on a lot, and there is no explicit acknowledgement of, oh, this is me, and I'm serving others. Rather, it's natural, it's reflexive, and it's innate. It took me too long to truly appreciate the sacrifices my mom made to work full-time, go to school, and raise a family. In all honesty, it didn't really occur to me until I felt I was trying to do it all and wasn't doing it all well. She made it look easy and effortless because she did it in such a graceful and subtle way. 2 things have always stuck with me about my mom in my childhood. Number 1, I never ever remember her complaining about anything. Not once. I don't even remember her appearing exhausted. I have no explanation for why this might be, other than she was incredibly selfless. And 2, I always remember, even while I was a high school student, feeling really proud that my mom worked, and worked a job that she loved so much. She modeled for me a strong work ethic and a sense of independence. I learned the world did not revolve around me because my mom had to tend to other kids, to other families. but I only ever felt loved. I think because every day she showed me how much she loved me through these subtle, small acts of service. And I see that same humility in my female colleagues who day in and day out give of themselves to their students and the school, and somehow find they have something left in the tank to give to their own families, and then have more left in the tank to offer a colleague a helping hand. The phrases, "how can I help?" or "what do you need?" are part of the working mom lexicon here. Likely you all have fond memories of these amazing women on Millbrook's campus from your respective times. Many of them are here tonight. They set a precedent for this big cohort of today through their passion for their work, their love of you, the students, and the campus, their commitment to their own families, and their enormous capacity to mentor, support, and collaborate with their colleagues. These previous generations of working mothers continue to influence and inspire. And not for nothing, but the literal start of the school was because of Lucy Leffingwell, Edward Pulline's wife. She was the money who bought the farm, not him, just saying. Dating back to its inception, Millbrook was and is a place that stays afloat because of the incredible women who anchored it. I think of Linda Casertano, who for 30 years managed her home, her family, while working full-time, serving in many different roles. Drew was successful for many reasons, but mostly because he had the selfless support of Linda. She is tough and unflappable when she needs to be, but she's just as easily tender, loving, and empathetic. As the spouse of the head of school, she sacrificed a lot, but she was never a martyr for the cause. I so admire her grace and composure, and I'm so grateful to Linda for that example of how to balance it all. I hope that when our students look around for evidence of service, of that non-sibi sed cunctus attitude, that they don't have to look any further than their female dorm parents, teachers, or coaches. There is an army of women, all who give generously of themselves in the most selfless and altruistic of ways for others. I am honored to work with such extraordinary female colleagues who remind me of my own mother and grandmother, women who derive strength through their care of others. And I can only hope that our students and my own children learn that there's big power and influence in even the smallest gestures of service. I'm honored to be part of this event, this room, as it brings together so many women from Millbrook's past and present. I hope you take as much pride as I do in knowing the roots and reach of this community, because as I've come to find, there is no stronger or more impressive group. So thank you for your continued interest, your continued service to Millbrook and to each other.